MSW Media.
So yeah, now it's clean up on aisle 45 time. And for a long while yet, it is going to be clean up on aisle 45.
Welcome to episode 203 of Clean Up on Aisle 45. It's Wednesday, December 11th, 2024. I'm Allison Gill.
And I'm Harry Dunn. Hey, Allison.
Hey, Harry.
We have a lot to cover today, including Trump's billionaire cabinet, Trump's bid to dismiss the Fulton County charges against him, and Ken Chesebro's. Everybody remember Ken Chesebro's from down in Georgia. His motion to invalidate his guilty plea. Yep. All of a sudden, I'm not guilty anymore. Now that Trump's the president, I'm not guilty anymore.
Mm-hmm. And even though the federal criminal charges against Trump have been dismissed, much to our dismay, because of, thanks to the Supreme Court and the election, there are still multiple civil lawsuits against him for January 6th that he is going to face. And of course, Rudy is facing another motion for contempt.
Rudy.
And he gets shot down for his request from a different judge for more time to respond to his second motion for contempt. I think we're up to 3. But first, we have new patrons to thank, new patrons to the show. These are contributing members. Really incredible. Big virtual hugs to all of you because we couldn't do this without you. So thank you for continuing to support us. And also, if you can't swing it and you're just listening, thanks for just listening. Just listening really helps us out. So
Definitely
we appreciate you being here. But here are some of our new patrons. And again, if you sign up to become a patron at patreon.com/aisle45pod, AISLE45POD, you get to pick whatever name you want and we read it. So here we have, You Had Me at Hot Teabag. Thank you.
I like that one.
John Wick riding a horse through New York City. All right.
That's kind of awesome.
And Marguerite. Thank you. Thank you so much because, like I said, we couldn't do this without you. All right, let's talk about Trump's junk drawer, which has turned out to be a junk drawer of billionaires. Kat Zacharzewski writes for the Washington Post, Trump's cabinet is on track to be one of the richest in modern history, on par only with the team of millionaires and billionaires he assembled during his first term. He has picked billionaires to serve as Commerce Secretary and Education Secretary, and he's tapped other super rich leaders for the Treasury and Interior. He's also offered non-cabinet positions, including NASA Director and Deputy Defense Secretary, to billionaires. Robert Tate wrote for The Guardian, enough billionaires and multimillionaires have been assembled by Donald Trump to fill key roles in his nascent administration to form a soccer team. The net result will be the wealthiest administration in U.S. history, worth a total of $340 billion with a B at the start of this week, before Trump further boosted its monetary value by trying to appoint at least 3 more billionaires. By the way, Harry, that's higher than the GDPs of 169 countries.
I can't help but laughing. I'm sorry, it's not funny, but it is. You laugh to keep from crying, right?
Well, right, especially since a bunch of people picked him because they thought he was a man of the people. Golden Toilet Man is the workers' champion. But that is according to U.S. News and World Report, and the figures are most likely significantly higher, but finding the net worth of Besant, he's also a known billionaire, is tricky, and therefore he was even left out of the above $340 billion calculation because he's so rich that they can't even
figure out how much money he has.
Money he's worth.
He's got a lot.
So here we have, and I feel like there's going to be a huge shift now towards more populist ideas, and Vice President Harris was doing that a lot. Like, we need an economy for all. Biden did this. We have to build an economy from the bottom up. Really supported union workers' rights. And child tax credits for working families, and trying to tax people who make over $400,000 a year, and not increasing anyone's taxes who made less than that. And when we see sort of this mass deportation of workers, prices increase, inflation due to tariffs, people getting their health care gutted, veterans losing their benefits, when all of that starts to compound in concert with the realization that this is he's filling the swamp, not draining the swamp, with billionaires. And I think it's might start to eventually dawn on people that perhaps Donald Trump, maybe you shouldn't split a ticket with Donald Trump and AOC, for example. And a lot of this is messaging, but I think people are starting to get the picture.
Let's hope that they do. I mean, we're a month and some change away from his administration taking center stage again. But like you just said, $340 billion is made up of this cabinet. And this is outside of just the horrible people that they are. Listen, if people made their money there's nothing that says that they can't serve. There are a lot of rich people that believe in helping other people out. But let's just look at some of the individuals that he has in there. Like these people, they don't want to help people. They don't want their money taken. You mentioned Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's plan to tax people that were $400,000 and above, make the wealthiest humans pay their fair share. That doesn't happen. How do these billionaires want the economy to work? What they want to do is they want to cut programs that help people, not pay their fair share. They want to cut programs that already exist, Social Security, veterans benefits. These programs are beneficial to so many people, but it's not beneficial to these billionaires. So instead of saying, hey, we're going to pay our fair share, we're going to do our part, let's just cut these social programs, as they call them.
Yeah, they want to cut food stamps, for example. 35,000 of our active duty service members rely on food stamps. Meanwhile, these billionaires like Elon Musk get corporate welfare. And nobody seems to talk about those hundreds of billions of dollars that they get when, you just want $1,200 a month for your fucking Social Security.
Oh, yeah. And I'm glad you just brought up Elon Musk. He's not in the cabinet, right? But he has, well, I mean, who knows what this, but it turned out that the reports show that he's been the highest donor to any presidential candidate. And, it just goes to show you can buy your way to a seat at the table. And it sucks.
Yeah, you can buy the fucking table. He bought the Resolute desk, dude. He bought himself a little piece of that criminally immune Oval Office. So let's talk about some of these more significant picks that happened this week. First of all, the DEA guy that Trump nominated, Chad Cronister, he actually had to withdraw his name because there were a bunch of conservative Republicans in the Senate and who were like, we're not going to vote for that guy. Oh, is he corrupt or something? No. He enforced lockdowns during COVID, and we don't like that.
We don't like that.
We already have like NIH guys and some people who've been, named to work at Health and Human Services who believe in herd immunity and thought we shouldn't lock down and thought we should all go get together and have parties and give each other COVID to sort of combat the illness as opposed to, vaccines and masking and 6 feet apart.
Let me ask you something. Were they mad because he enforced? I mean, there were people, Republicans, MAGA people that wore masks. I mean, I remember at the Capitol, Matt Gaetz was walking around. If y'all could cool with this picture, Matt Gaetz COVID mask. He has on this big ass respirator with it's the goofiest looking thing ever. But I mean, was he making a statement or was he? I don't know. At this point, anything's possible. But there were Republicans MAGA people who wore masks. Is it because he thinks that, or those senators that forced him to withdraw his nomination, to think that he's not all in, all MAGA, or he has the ability to think for himself? That's this cult that is known as MAGA. It's a cult now.
Yeah, he's not evil enough, I guess.
Sure,
but that famous picture of Ted Cruz fleeing to Cancun, dude's got a mask on at the airport. Marjorie Taylor Greene wore a mask.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have to wonder, like that Matt Gaetz thing where he was making fun of people who masked by wearing his respirator. I always wonder if that's like the gas mask that's under your seat, the ones that many of the members of Congress had to don.
I don't think that was it. It's similar. Actually, it's funny. It looks similar to that. But I don't think that was the exact one. And actually, in order, inside knowledge, if anybody, you have to get to one, it's an alarm that will go off as you open the escape hoods, is what they're called, escape hoods.
Yeah, and that's what many of people in Congress had to wear on January 6th.
Sure did.
All right, we also have Hegseth is going through some more troubles. He's down on Capitol Hill trying to save his nomination. And in the meantime, Wall Street Journal reported that Trump was actually mulling replacing him with Ron DeSantis or Joni Ernst to be the Secretary of Defense. But I think Joni Ernst shamefully has agreed to meet with Hegseth. She might be changing her mind. She actually co-sponsored a bill with Kirsten Gillibrand to pass the Military Justice Improvement Act to help take the decision to prosecute rape in the military out of the chain of command. And now she's considering putting an alleged rapist in charge of the whole shebang. And that blows my mind, because Joni Ernst, as much as I disagree with her on pretty much every fucking thing ever,
she got that right.
She would have been a better choice for Secretary of Defense than Hegseth. At least she would have worked to help protect people in the military from sexual assault,
from sexual predators.
Would have, still championed women in combat roles as opposed to what Hegseth's doing. But his nomination's in trouble, and I can tell because all the right-wing pundits are trying to prop him up right now, which is what happened to Matt Gaetz before he had to withdraw his name.
Well, I don't, is Hegseth's pride too much that he will not drop out? He's going to take this all the way to confirmation hearings. And you know what? I honestly think that him doing so puts the pressure on the senators, because it'll make any senator that votes no kind of draw Trump's ire, his wrath a little bit. And you know what comes with that? If Trump doesn't like you, the base doesn't like you. And what does that also do? That gets you kicked out of Congress, as we've seen with so many Republican people that wouldn't bend the knee for Trump.
Yeah. Yeah. And also we have to, keep in mind, I think Steve Vladeck wrote up some pretty great information on his One First Substack on Monday about not just recess appointments, but interim acting appointments, using the Federal Vacancies Reform Act, or skirting the Federal Vacancies Reform Act, to just install people. But there are a few guardrails left against that, including you have to actually have worked at that particular place.
Allison, let me ask you a question. Yes, they actually do. And maybe this will be helpful for some of the listeners out there. But what is the difference out there between what is the major thing between an acting attorney general versus an appointed one? Is there any major differences that they cannot do?
They can have the full power of that position, but they can only have it for 210 days unless it's extended by another 210 days because the nominee can't get through the Senate. But the main difference is that if you're installed as an acting, if you meet certain criteria, which Trump flouted during his first term as president, that you don't have to be confirmed by the Senate.
Mm-hmm. And that's scary.
But if you're not confirmed by the Senate, you have to have worked at the agency for 90 days in the last 365 days. So there's still a couple of guardrails. Whether they hold or not, I don't think is the key. I think the key is that they can be sued. That can be litigated. Somebody can sue. Do you know what I mean? That can come up the works. You can sue and say he's not eligible Kash Patel's not eligible to be FBI director on an interim appointment because he hasn't worked at the FBI for 90 days in the last year. And so therefore I am suing. And while I sue, I would like to ask for an emergency injunction preventing him from taking the job while you decide, all sorts of
stalling techniques
that Trump used on us to avoid justice, that I think we should be able to use on him. Somebody else.
Agree 100%.
Somebody else, your good pal, Pete Navarro, has been nominated as trade advisor. And so, if you haven't sexually assaulted someone or you don't have that in your past, as long as you're an indicted felon, a convicted felon, I think you can, get a job with the Trump administration.
Absolutely.
As Pete Navarro is.
No moral compass and a felon, I think, is the prerequisites for getting involved in getting the cabinet position. Don't apply unless you have these two things: no morals and a felony on your record.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm all for, I'm all for. Listen, if we got a white president in the White House that's a felon, I mean, then maybe we need to look at, fair job applications. Maybe that's a question that needs to go away since people don't care about it anymore, right?
Yeah, no, I guarantee you it'll still be on job applications for us poors. We'll still have to not
poors,
be a felon.
You common folk.
Yeah. Also, David Sachs has been named the AI and crypto czar. Yeah, and Sachs has long been close to the center of Silicon Valley's power structure, a member of the PayPal mafia. He was that company's chief operating officer for several years, grew close with Elon Musk, knows Peter Thiel. He's a gazillionaire. He's going to be, so add him to the billionaire junk drawer.
These people, man, they're so rich. It's crazy.
And then, of course, Pete Morocco. You sent me this a little bit earlier. This is a guy who was caught on camera by sedition hunters in the Capitol January 6th. And he's actually working on Trump's national security personnel transition team. So a January 6th insurrectionist working on national security issues for the transition team.
Well, they just go ahead and ask Putin for his advice, too. I mean, Jesus Christ.
They do.
No, I know.
They do.
No. Just do it. Say it out loud now, you know?
Yeah, obviously just absolutely ridiculous picks, but that's, they want us to whinge over these. So we missed some of the more, insidious ones and some other things that are going on, like his interview where he told Kristen Welker he's definitely going to have everybody on the January 6th committee thrown in jail. They belong in prison and all that stuff. And Liz Cheney shot back in a statement saying, "Oh yeah, really? Because your lawyers are going to get sanctioned if you try that shit."
Definitely. For all the listeners, check that out. I did have some commentary on some cable news shows about my thoughts about that. That's a whole different topic, though.
Yeah, no, we all watch on cable news whenever you show up, my friend. That's how I watch cable news these days. Is it used to be on in the background.
Somebody on there. All right,
all the time.
All right, I don't know this person. Turn it off.
Yeah, now it's it because Scott Jennings might show up or fucking.
Oh my gosh,
somebody up there like we usually need to pardon Donald Trump. No, we don't. We need to stop. So like when my friends are on, or Katie Fang or The Weeknd or something, or you text me and say, hey, I'm coming up on this. I'll flip it on for a sec. Because it's important what you got to say. All right, we have more news to get to, but we have to take a quick break. So everybody stick around. We'll be right back.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We have some new patrons to thank this week. Angela Abouchan. I think that's French. Yeah, let's go with that. Michelle Stevens, Muffy Young, and Lynn. Thank you so much, you all, for supporting us. It truly means the world to us.
Lynn, with one N.
With one N.
Always reminds me of Mitch Hedberg's joke. He's like, I had an ex-girlfriend named Lynn. She spelled her name with one N. And my new girlfriend, Lynn, spells her name with two N's.
Two N's.
And my new girlfriend gets mad when I call her by my old girlfriend's name because I didn't say as long.
That's so funny. That reminds me of this joke. I may butcher real quick. But let's just use the name Lynn. And somebody say, hey, you spelled my name wrong. There's too many N's in it. All right, which one do I take out? Dad jokes. Sorry, guys.
Dad jokes. By the way, girl dad. Harry is a girl dad.
Dad, my little 13-year-old. Shout out to my daughter, Daphne. Hey, Daph. All right, again, thanks so much for supporting us. All right, let's head down to Georgia for an update in the Fulton County January 6th RICO case. You recall that a while back, Judge McAfee tossed out 3 charges, calling them unconstitutional. Well, one of those charges is that Ken Chesebro pled guilty to. So now he's filed a motion to invalidate his guilty plea. Law and Crime writes, Chesebro is widely known as one of the authors of the so-called coup memos that offered legal opinions on how Donald Trump could overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election in a constitutionally defensible manner. Constitutionally defensible. The Constitution says you can overturn this election.
Yeah, you can have a coup, it says. It's in bold, I think.
That's it saying. It goes on to say, specifically, the New York attorney was the chief architect of the alternate or fake electors plan. For that plan, Chesbro was charged with a total of 7 counts in the wide-ranging indictment filed by embattled Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis. Those charges included 1 alleged RICO violation, 1 count of conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit false statements and writing, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit filing false documents. Whew. Take a break after reading all them counts. In October 2023, days before his case was slated to go to trial, Chesbro pleaded guilty to one count of conspiracy to commit filing false documents in exchange for Willis dropping the 6 other counts. As part of his deal, Chesbro agreed to testify for the state against the remaining defendants and received a sentence of 5 years probation, 100 hours of community service, and a $5,000 fine. Now, second thoughts have been formalized. I wonder why.
Yeah, 100 hours of community service. I just want to see him on the side of the road.
I would love to see that.
Garbage. And fine. Okay. We'll just bring those other 6 charges back, dude. But anyway, this is a 5-page plea in bar dated Tuesday and docketed last Wednesday. Chesbro is challenging the indictment itself on the basis the count he pleaded guilty to was subsequently invalidated by the trial court. A plea in bar is a challenge to the validity of the indictment, the motion says. This mechanism can be utilized post-conviction. On September 12th, Fulton County Superior Judge McAfee, who previously tossed out several other charges in the slowly but consistently dwindling case, quashed 3 counts under the doctrine of federal preemption. With that order, counts 14, 15, and 27 were tossed. The judge explained that an 1890 U.S. Supreme Court decision stylized as regarding lonely, that's the name of the case, it preempts the state's ability to prosecute perjury and false filings in a federal district court. Chesbro's motion notes that it's beyond the jurisdiction of a Georgia prosecutor to punish anyone for behavior in federal court. McAfee described his reasoning as follows. He says, applying this reasoning to the facts alleged in the indictment, filing a document in a federal court is sufficiently analogous to providing testimony. Punishment for filing certain documents would enable a state to constrict the scope of materials assessed by a federal court and impair the administration of justice in that tribunal. At its core, Loney concerns, that's the case that we're talking about, concerns the ability of a federal tribunal to police its own proceedings. Counts 14 and 15, as alleged here, interfere with the district court's ability to do just that by imposing a state sanction when a federal sanction is already in place. Now, the Chesbro matter returns to McAfee, who retains jurisdiction at the first stage of any post-conviction proceeding. So I'm
about to say, let's do layman's terms, because that was a lot of legal jargon that we just went through right there.
Yeah, he's saying that that he dismissed this charge. We went over this in detail in a previous show. But the one charge that he pled guilty to, because he had 7 felony counts, Fani Willis dropped 6, so he would plead to 1. That one charge has been thrown out because you can't have state jurisdiction over a federal court filed document in the fraudulent elector scheme. So that means that he's coming back now saying, hey, that one charge I pled guilty to has been tossed out, so my guilty plea should go away. That's what he's contending. And we will keep you posted on what the court decides. But Fani Willis can come back and say, okay, we'll throw out that guilty plea, and now we're going to hit you with this indictment again for these other 6 charges. We're going to fully charge you for these other things. You want to plead guilty to these 2? We're not going to offer you probation this time. Who knows?
That's what a plea deal is. A plea deal is, hey, I messed up here, and okay, in exchange for your plea deal, you have to do this. So now he's revoking his guilty plea. So okay, bet.
Or trying to.
Yeah, trying to. But now we're on the table. And one of these things, obviously, I joked around earlier. I wonder why he's doing this now. Obviously, it has to do with Trump winning the election. But we remember, everybody, Donald Trump cannot pardon people in state cases. So
yeah. And he doesn't mention the election in his plea bar or whatever the hell this is. He doesn't mention that. He doesn't mention immunity. He doesn't mention anything other than the fact that the judge threw out this charge. And right now, this whole case is on pause because it's on appeal. Because as we know, Fani Willis was not disqualified from running this investigation.
Yeah.
And the co-defendants have appealed that ruling. And that was supposed to be heard this month, but it's been indefinitely postponed. And the thing is that it actually has to be heard within 2 terms of the appellate court, which happens this spring. So maybe we'll get a new calendar date for that to happen. So there's a lot of things going on in this case.
I feel like they're going to be happening in rapid succession. They're going to want these things to get them off their damn books because, I mean, they've been trying to delay, punt this thing down the road as long as they can. So
Yeah. And now we've got something about Trump wanting to dismiss this whole case, yeah?
Yeah, my friend Kyle Cheney over at Politico. President-elect Donald Trump is asking a Georgia appeals court to throw out the criminal charges he is facing in the state for seeking to subvert the 2020 election. Quote, a sitting president is completely immune from indictment or any criminal process, state or federal, Trump's attorney Steve Sato wrote in a 5-page filing, citing Justice Department policies drawn up during Bill Clinton's presidency. Let's talk about it. It's a policy. That's not a law. It's just
and it's
their
also a
practice,
Justice Department policy, and the Justice Department has nothing to do with this particular
Zero.
case.
So they're stating a policy, not necessarily a law or anything like that or anything. This is just, it's kind of like a professional courtesy, if you want to talk about that.
And we haven't litigated this, right? We've never had we never elected somebody who's facing indictment in state charges. So
correct.
Now he's trying to get this done.
That's exactly. So Sato argues that the Georgia court should end the pending cases before Trump's inauguration, before January 20th, ordering the trial judge, Scott McAfee, to dismiss it altogether. That conclusion would end the only lingering criminal case against him that has not already gone to trial. It's long been clear that a president can't face federal criminal proceedings from his own Justice Department. Well, we got to stop you right there because this isn't your own Justice Department. This is the state of Georgia. Special counsel Jack Smith acknowledged that reality when he moved to drop his 2 criminal cases against Trump last month. But the ability of state prosecutors to maintain criminal cases against a sitting president is murkier.
Yeah, murkier, because again, no one ever thought we would elect a indicted dude.
Here we are.
Kyle goes on to say, Trump contends that constitutional principles and Supreme Court precedent prevent state prosecutors from proceeding against the sitting president in any way. But that proposition has not been tested in the courts, in part because, like I said, Trump is the first ever former and now incoming president to face criminal charges at any level.
Any level.
The case against Trump in Georgia, where he's charged with a sweeping racketeering conspiracy for allegedly seeking to corrupt the state's election results in 2020, has been stuck for months, while the lead prosecutor, Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis, is fighting to remain in charge of it. Trump and several allies are seeking to disqualify her from the case, claiming she has a financial conflict of interest stemming from a romantic relationship with her former lead prosecutor. The Georgia Court of Appeals froze the case earlier this year while it considers that dispute. So we'll see what ends up happening here. This is a lot like what he filed up in New York for his 34 felony count conviction, saying you can't sentence me. Sentencing me is part of a prosecution, and you can't prosecute a sitting president, even though I'm not president until January 20th, and even though you're not the Department of Justice. Same argument.
I feel like that's clear.
Well, I thought it was clear that presidents weren't kings.
How do you see this going, Allison? I mean, like, to me, it's clear that the state, and one, it's a policy. It's not a law. It's not in the Constitution, nothing. It's a policy. And then also it says from the president's own DOJ. Now, those are we could clearly combat those issues. It's a state issue, and it's not your DOJ. It's the state of Georgia. What is the prediction, Allison? Do you have a prediction how this is going to go?
Yeah, if I had to make a prediction, I think McAfee will agree that you can't have criminal proceedings at any level against a sitting president. And based on, the way the Justice Department reads the Constitution, those couple of OLC memos that say you can't prosecute a sitting president.
Sure.
The states are going to have to make that determination on a state-by-state basis. And I do imagine that they will say that it violates the Constitution, the part where it says you can't do anything that would impede a sitting president from doing his job. Now, whether they dismiss it without prejudice, like Jack Smith did, or whether they hold it in abeyance, or whether they don't do anything because it's in the appeals process right now, is yet to be seen. But I do think, and we talked about this a lot before the election, me and like Andy and Pete and some other people who've worked for the Department of Justice and the feds, that even though these are state cases and they aren't bound by the DOJ, Office of Legal Counsel memos, they would probably likely also interpret the Constitution to mean that we can't impede the job of the executive. And so we aren't going to have these charges. We aren't going to continue to prosecute this case while he's in office. But what they do with it in the meantime, that remains to be seen, especially considering, statute of limitations. Holding in abeyance has been determined by the feds to also be considered prosecution. So the states are going to have to make this determination themselves. It'll be appealed, and we'll see where the courts end up on it. But my prediction is that these cases will not be allowed to go forward against him while he's the president. Unfortunately, I don't want that to be the answer. I don't.
I was about to say womp womp womp.
Yeah, sorry to be a Debbie Downer.
But yeah, I think that's accurate, and that's spot on. Because like you just said, the number one thing, you can't impede the president doing this. And let's be real, a court case of any magnitude is going to take some bodies. It's going to impede people from doing their job, even if it's Donald Trump.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's going to file the same stuff in what we're about to talk about, which is the remaining civil cases against Donald Trump. He's going to contend that it impedes his job to be civilly sued while a sitting president. But, that hasn't proven too successful in the past. And I know Burstein and Cheney wrote about this too, and we'll get to it, but we have to take another quick break. So everybody stick around. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. We have a few more new patrons to thank, including Greg Robin Smith, a.k.a. Benjamin Franklin, live. We have Angel and Mavis as well. So again, big virtual hugs to you for supporting us and supporting independent media and supporting, just me and Harry personally. We appreciate it. We couldn't do it without you. So I want to let me just give a little intro here. I feel like we've had more success with justice as a concept as it pertains to civil cases over criminal cases against Donald Trump and his allies, right?
Yeah.
We've had the successful civil cases filed against Trump by E. Jean Carroll, costing Trump like $97 million. We had the civil suits against Alex Jones in 2 jurisdictions for calling Sandy Hook a hoax. That cost him a cool $1.5 billion. Well, everything he owns right now. It probably doesn't equal that much money.
Not at all.
We had the civil fraud case against Trump's businesses brought by Tish James that cost him, or will cost him, nearly $500 million. It's in appeals right now. We had the $148 million judgment against Rudy Giuliani brought by Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss. It seems like our justice is coming from these civil cases.
Can we throw Fox News in there?
Yeah. Fox News, $987.5 million. For defamation. So yeah, good catch. I mean, that's where I've been getting my justice fix is from these civil cases.
Hit them in the pocketbook, right?
Yep. Because federal criminal cases are hard, and people don't generally go to jail usually, especially if you're rich and white, and like it's all, So even though the federal criminal cases against Trump for January 6th have come to an end, after the billionaire-backed Supreme Court thwarted the trial from happening before the election, there are still multiple civil lawsuits against Donald Trump for his actions on January 6th.
Yeah, and Josh Gerstein has written the following for Politico. And this is near and dear to me. We'll talk about it because this is, so it stems from some of the January 6th cases.
Yeah, Blasingame et al. is some Capitol Police officers that are suing.
Absolutely. Donald Trump isn't off the hook for January 6th just yet. Though the criminal cases against him are all but dead, Trump is likely to be fighting eight civil lawsuits from members of Congress and injured police officers from the United States Capitol Police. Some of my friends, some people that I've known my whole career, they have active lawsuits going currently, and I am rooting for them. Deep into his second term. They may be the last form of legal redress Trump faces for his role in spurring the Capitol riot on January 6, 2021. Those lawsuits have been steadily advancing for years, largely overshadowed by the explosive January 6th committee and grand jury investigations. But now that the criminal cases have imploded, they become a last stand of sorts for those seeking to hold Trump accountable for the chaos his supporters wrought that day.
Yeah, and I just want to add, I have a little bit of a problem with the criminal cases imploding. I think they exploded. They were killed by outside forces.
I agree. Like imploding is like infighting. No,
right, or it sort of implies that they were weak cases or they were somehow faulty or
not
something.
at all. They were, yeah. And it goes on to say, Josh goes on to say, these cases, unlike the criminal case, will not be affected by the election, said Josh Sellers, a lawyer representing 10 current and former Democratic House members suing Trump and members of two far-right groups involved in the riot, the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. Our clients suffered real injuries that entitled them to relief, but also, I think, are seeking some measure of accountability given President Trump's role in the January 6th events and the events leading up to it.
Yep. And Gerstein goes on to say that Trump's election effectively scuttled special counsel Jack Smith's prosecution of Trump, but a unanimous Supreme Court ruling from more than 2 decades ago says that civil litigation can proceed against a sitting president. The High Court ruled that those cases don't need to end because of the potential to distract the chief executive. It's what we were talking about with the Fani Willis case, right?
Yeah.
And a complicated appeals court ruling in 2023 allowed the January 6 lawsuits to move forward despite Trump's claims of presidential immunity, a decision that helped form the basis of the Supreme Court's subsequent ruling on Trump's immunity from criminal proceedings. Trump is still waiting for a ruling on whether he's immune from the lawsuits because he was acting as president as he riled up the crowds at the Ellipse that day. That's his argument. We say he was acting as a campaign in a campaign capacity for president, as a private citizen campaigning. And he even called himself a private citizen when he intervened in Ken Paxton's lawsuit, Texas v. Pennsylvania, where he wanted to throw out the vote saying, hey, I'm intervened as a private citizen, Citizen Trump. And so there's that whole, Blasingame decision that you were the lawsuit that we're talking about that says you're not an office holder here, you're an office seeker when you were speaking at the Ellipse. Trump is still waiting for that ruling, right? Now, if he's held liable for inciting the violence at the Capitol, Trump could be on the hook for tens of millions of dollars. Quote, this is something that should be brought to trial during a second administration of Trump, Sellers added. He went on to say, we're not suggesting that the president be treated like any other defendant, but that should not stop these cases from proceeding to trial.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, I'm going to continue the article, but I have a question. It just occurred to me during this, is it possible that during a civil trial, the people pursuing it, the officers, can request Jack Smith's report? Is there an avenue for them to get that? Even if yes, there's still a chance for Jack Smith to release the report from the DOJ. But, there's a whole investigation of this. And I'm sure there are avenues or there's some type of way for them to request it through discovery.
They can request it. Generally, the DOJ doesn't comply with those requests. But they can use all the public shit, the 165-page immunity briefing that Jack Smith filed, which is a summary of the underlying evidence of the case. Any other filings, court docket filings, things that are public, things that you and I have access to, they'll have access to all of that.
So, the DOJ doesn't normally comply with that. However, I think they may have a motivation to comply. Personal
It'll be Trump's
motivation.
DOJ, though.
Well, yeah, true. But before, this is what's to do before, these would be dismissed before Trump takes office. So we'll see how this plays out. But I'll go over the article.
We'll see. Go ahead. Yeah. No, and also there's other things that they can bring in. For example, the 14th Amendment, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment case in the Colorado Supreme Court that found that he was responsible for an insurrection or participated in an insurrection. The Supreme Court at the federal level, obviously, decided that didn't happen. Because, they're in the bag for Donald. But all of that public information will be available to these petitioners.
Gotcha. I'm just doing everything I can to get Jack Smith's report out as we're all wet that, I'm sure. But the article continues. On Friday, the attorneys in the case met for a brief update. And Trump's lawyer, Jonathan Shaw, said he anticipated additional delays in the case because the president-elect's lead attorney, David Warrington, had just been named White House counsel.
Yeah, too bad.
Too bad, right? Okay, well, now you got two jobs. Trump is also a defendant in the other long-running lawsuits, including one seeking to hold him accountable for unleashing federal law enforcement agents on Black Lives Matter protesters and another claiming he defamed the wrongly accused Central Park Five during his debate with Vice President Kamala Harris in September.
Yep. Central Park 5 brought a suit.
Yep.
People, Black Lives Matter, some protesters brought a lawsuit. So, yeah, he's got a lot of civil lawsuits, and we'll see what his particular Supreme Court lets him get away with as these cases go forward. The article continues, adding to the unwieldy heap of litigation are a slew of suits Trump himself has filed in recent years, accusing media organizations, his political opponents, and others of spreading defamatory stories about him or otherwise treating him unfairly. And this is kind of my claim to fame, Harry. I am actually named in one of these lawsuits.
Yes.
For the fabled or infamous anti-Trump account, Mueller, she wrote, shared this Washington Post article because he sued the Post, right?
You got to print that out, by the way.
Yeah,
print that out and have that framed.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's pursuing a defamation lawsuit against ABC for asserting that a civil jury found that he raped E. Jean Carroll, when the jury actually found him liable for sexual abuse. A federal judge in New York ruled it's accurate to say Trump was found liable for rape in common modern parlance. Trump is also battling with publisher Simon & Schuster over the rights to recorded interviews he gave to journalist Bob Woodward. He's mad at Bob. He's pressing suits against CBS for its handling of the interview with Kamala Harris and the Pulitzer Prize Board for reaffirming awards it gave to the New York Times and the Washington Post for their reporting on ties between his 2016 campaign and Russia, a claim Trump often derides as the Russia hoax. And separately, Trump is fighting in a Georgia-based federal appeals court to reinstate a sweeping lawsuit he filed against Hillary Clinton and members of the intelligence community, 30 co-defendants on this, in an overtly political attack that resulted in a judge imposing a $1 million sanction against him and his attorneys. His attorneys here being Alina Habba, who was just named to Kellyanne Conway's old position.
See that? Yeah.
Yep. So now she's going to work this $1 million off, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. She needed a job. She had to pay for this somehow, right?
Yeah. All the civil suits exposed Trump to the possibility of being subject to court orders to testify in depositions that are typically recorded on video and sometimes released publicly. The deadline to complete depositions in the ABC case is December 9th. That's past Monday, after a judge refused an extension sought by both sides. So we'll see if he sits for that. An ABC spokesperson declined to comment on whether their network is seeking to depose Trump in the case, which was set for closed-door mediation on December 12th.
I was just thinking about, obviously all these cases, right? His lawyers say, dismiss the ones against me, but I'm going to keep the ones I got against everybody else open. I can't do my job while going to court getting sued, but let me sue these other people.
Oh, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Jesus Christ. I hope a judge brings that up when they're ruling on this. Despite Trump's bluster about confronting his opponents in court, he has a history of dropping or settling cases when he decides the political costs of pursuing them are too great. During his 2016 presidential campaign, Trump rallied against what he said were meritless lawsuits over his defunct Trump University business that offered seminars and mentoring in real estate. A judge delayed a trial in the civil cases until after the 2016 election. But when Trump won, he grudgingly settled, avoiding a distracting courtroom spectacle by paying out $25 million to resolve claims that the classes were a scam.
Yeah, and that was Tristan Snell, who worked on that case, by the way. And we know that the reason no criminal charges were brought in that case is because after Pam Bondi got a $25,000 donation from the Trump Foundation in Florida, though that criminal investigation just sort of went away. And now she's the Attorney General.
Attorney General. Look at that. Full circle, right? But also last fall, as Trump was ramping up his latest presidential campaign, he abruptly dropped a suit against his former personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, after a judge insisted that Trump sit for a deposition on a day he had scheduled a campaign rally in New Hampshire. A spokesperson said Trump elected to temporarily pause the litigation, accusing Cohen of breaching attorney-client privilege and a confidentiality agreement with Trump. The case has not been refiled.
And all of the pending civil suits, of all of them, the January 6th civil cases are shaping up as the marquee courtroom battle of the Trump presidency. The first hurdle in the cases is whether Trump is immune from the lawsuits altogether. He argues his actions on January 6 were connected to his official duties as president. U.S. District Judge Amit Mehta, who has been holding periodic status updates with the lawyers for months, said Friday that he wants to rule by summer on these immunity cases. If the Obama-appointed judge rules that the cases can proceed to trial, Trump is certain to appeal, likely back to the Supreme Court, which he has purchased and now owns, and they could consider the contours of presidential immunity as they relate to these civil cases. And gosh, do you think they'll go against what they decided 30 years ago? Do you think the precedent matters to this?
I was just about to say,
Supreme Court?
Since it's been ruled on fairly recently, 30 years, I guess, is recent history in terms of ruling court cases. Is it a world where they don't even hear the case?
I don't know. I wish I could. Like I used to be able to predict.
We used to
what
feel
the
confident
Supreme
to make it a
Court
prediction
would do
about the Supreme Court
because of the Constitution. But when they completely
Sure.
obliterated that document, anything's possible.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now, Trump has yet to be deposed in the January 6 lawsuits, which Chung, the spokesperson for Trump, denounced as part of the weaponization of the justice system. Both sides have agreed to put off Trump's testimony until the immunity issue is resolved, which is, at least in that one case, Judge Mehta says he's going to rule on that this summer. All right, per usual, we're gonna wrap up with some news about Rudy Giuliani, our good pal, and his legal woes, which continue to mount. But we do have to take one last quick break, so everybody stick around. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everybody. We have just a few more patrons to thank, including Jim DeGriz, C.R. Smith, and Democracy Cannot Survive Unregulated Capitalism.
Yeah, eat the rich.
Amen. Right, yeah.
I'm starting a new group. We're called the Low Road Dems.
Road Dems. Let's do it. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think
Trademark.
it's good.
Pending.
Don't
Don't
mistake.
you think about it. Watch it show up on a social media handle, somebody put it, and they're going to tag you or me in it. Let's go.
Don't mistake our kindness for weakness.
Absolutely. We will civilly sue your ass. You know? but as is tradition here on Clean Up on Aisle 45, we end the show with an update on Rudy Giuliani. Every time I say his name, I just think about that picture of him with his hair dye running down
where his face melted off.
What a miserable old man he is. Let's start with the latest contempt filing from Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss. This is not the contempt he could face for failing to turn over his possessions to the receivership that Judge Lehman threatened, nor is this the contempt filing in D.C. for Rudy's continued defamation of Moss and Freeman in violation of a court order. No, this contempt filing has to do with discovery in the upcoming January trial over the disposition of his Florida property. This is from an article written for MSNBC. The plaintiffs have asked U.S. District Judge Louis Lyman to hold Giuliani in civil contempt and to impose sanctions on him for attempting to stonewall what should be a straightforward and abbreviated process. Quote, "It seems that Mr. Giuliani may be refusing to comply with the orders in an attempt, at least in part, to force the court to accept further delay," their lawyers said in the filing. Mr. Giuliani's gamesmanship and willful disregard for court orders and the burdens of his litigation misconduct have inflicted on the parties and the court warrant the entry of these severe sanctions.
Yeah, severe sanctions. Because Rudy, once again, has failed to turn over a single document in discovery. Because he's trying to say that his Florida condo is a homestead for tax purposes and this shit. So on Friday, Judge Lyman ordered Giuliani to respond to the motion by December 19th and to appear at a hearing on the issue on January 3rd. Giuliani's lawyer did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Giuliani has been mired in legal troubles related to the $148 million defamation verdict the women had won against him in December of 2023. It's been that long. It's been a year since they won this judgment.
Yeah.
And they're just now getting watches and rings and shit from him.
Yeah.
Freeman and Moss have sought to collect on the judgment since Giuliani's bankruptcy case was dismissed, as the former New York City mayor has repeatedly blown past court-ordered deadlines to surrender his assets. Now, Judge Lyman has previously threatened to hold Giuliani in contempt just last month.
Yeah.
After the disgraced former lawyer, I should say, failed to hand over his assets, claiming that he did not know where his possessions were.
Shows how important they are to him, right? Or how much he needs them, or that guy. What's more, Freeman and Moss have pointed in filings to live streams made by Giuliani on November 14th and 16th, in which they say he has repeated the defamatory claims against them. Like, he's going on people's podcasts and streams. It's continually making these statements.
In violation of court orders from a judge.
And like, he's doing it. Does he not know how the internet works? Like, we can see you, Rudy.
It's like when my cat tries to eat the Christmas tree. I'm like, I can see you.
I am watching you. Like, what is happening? The women have asked a federal judge in Washington, D.C. to hold Giuliani in contempt for allegedly continuing to defame them. I always got pause when you say allegedly, right? Because that's to be proven. Like, we have it on tape. Like, it's not alleged anymore. But anyway, that's just a pet peeve. Giuliani is set to appear in court on December 12th for a hearing on that request.
All right. So December 12th for his contempt about continuing to defame, and then December 19th for a hearing on the January failure to hand stuff over for the trial, and then another hearing on January 3rd. So December 12th, December 19th, January 3rd. He's a busy fella.
Is Rudy just looking for a place to stay? Like, is that why he keeps going to court? Like,
yeah.
Does he just need a roof over his head to
sleep on the bench?
My goodness, man.
And in other Rudy news, he submitted a letter to Judge Beryl Howell. That's the one that you were just talking about in D.C. He's asking for more time to respond to his contempt motion, right? That's the one where Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss asked her to hold Rudy in contempt for continuing to defame them. And here's what Rudy says. I am the pro se defendant. That means he's defending himself. And as we all know, anyone who defends himself has a fool for a client. I am the pro se defendant in the above referenced action. I write to request a 30-day extension to file a response and opposition to Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss's motion for civil contempt filed on November 20th. If this request is granted, the response and opposition will be filed on January 2nd, 2025, instead of December 2nd, 2024, the deadline that was set by the court. Now, the primary reason for this requested extension is that I need more time to find an attorney to represent me in this matter, especially now that the plaintiffs are making allegations seeking civil contempt. All of his lawyers have quit because he's not paying them. I've spoken to 4 attorneys, and each attorney has declined to handle this matter because they believe Your Honor is unreasonable and biased about Trump-related matters. That's the lie that he. And so, also, real good if you're defending yourself to blame the judge and
blame now it's the judge's fault.
Yeah.
Lord have mercy.
The matters in your ideological rather than logical, according to these 4 attorneys who refuse to work with Rudy. It's not because he's drunk all the time and broke and doesn't pay his lawyers. It's because the judge is ideological rather than logical. One said it was a foregone conclusion and a no-win proposition. Yeah, that's because it's a foregone conclusion and a no-win proposition because it's so blatantly obvious that you are violating the law, my dude. Among other numerous reasons, your handling of the J6 cases is considered by many to be the most unnecessarily harsh. They also cited objections of their firm to the effect on their practice. So, yeah, I'll just break in here and say, Rudy, their firms won't let them represent you because of you.
Because of you. So, all right, I'm going to bring the judge now.
It's time to take a swim in Lake U, Rudy.
I like that. Let's swim in Lake U. That's pretty good.
Thank you. Some were willing to assist in my other cases, but not this one. Additionally, the difficulty of finding an attorney has been exacerbated by the Thanksgiving holiday. There is no prejudice to plaintiffs in granting this extension. Yes, there is. Since I will agree to abide by their interpretation of the restrictions on what I consider my right of free speech and to defend myself against their false statements until the matter is heard. To the extent that the court is not willing to give me an extension to find an attorney, I ask for at least 3 weeks so that I can prepare my response on a pro se basis. He's already had on a pro se basis to properly set out before the court that the purported comments mentioned in the plaintiff's motion for contempt were to defend myself against their comments and only relate to the judicial proceedings and not to comments about the plaintiffs. No, they don't. They were defamatory.
That's just a whole bunch of jargon to
Yeah.
get Rudy in trouble with the judge, because the judge almost immediately denied his request. She wrote this in a minute order, denying without prejudice defendant Rudolph W. Giuliani's letter request for an extension of time to respond to plaintiff's pending motion for civil contempt, which request was submitted to the court via letter without his signature. You forgot to sign it, Rudy, for failure to comply with applicable procedural rules. Since even defendants without any legal training and proceedings pro se are required to comply with procedural rules, and this defendant, though pro se, has previously been a practicing attorney with history of significant government legal positions. Signed, Judge Beryl Howe.
She's like, even a fucking idiot could do this right.
That's literally what I was thinking.
Especially one who was a former U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. Even an idiot could do this, and you didn't even sign your shit. So no, denied.
Yeah. Fucking loser.
Pretty much. I love Judge Beryl Howe. She's really fun to read between the lines. And which even pro se, without any legal experience, understand, how to sign their names. I mean, it's just
she let him have it, rightfully so. Like, it's kind of like, Rudy, I am tired of your mess. Mm-hmm. Like, this is no.
Yeah, and she doesn't even touch the merits. Like, yeah, I'll give you another 3 weeks since all your lawyers ditched you. It's like, you didn't sign this or fill this out right, and you violated all the rules, so I can't even. So she did dismiss it without prejudice. Like, so Correct. He will probably come back and say, okay, here's my signature. Can I please have more time? No lawyers love me.
I signed it now.
I followed the rules, and then she'll rule again. And she might give him a little more time. Yeah. But, she's not even going to look at it if you didn't file it right. So I love her. Like, even people with no legal experience do this right. And you are supposedly a lawyer for your whole life. But okay. All right. We'll see what ends up happening. But none of this is going to go well for Rudy. I'm really interested to see what Judge Lyman says. When he said, because he gave until December 13th, the end of this week, for Rudy to take photos of and drive the shit over to a storage facility of the choosing of Ruby Freeman and Shane Moss. And they had to hand that over, which storage facility, they had to hand that information over by this past Monday. So we'll know by the end of the week. On pain of contempt, Lyman was pissed at Rudy's games, like handing over the car, but not the title, and hiding this stuff in storage. And
I'm also kind of hoping that this doesn't end. I mean, this is only my second episode, but I'm loving the trash Rudy part of the show. Like, we got to keep this going. Like, keep it up, Rudy. You're doing a great job. There's great content.
There has been for the last 2 years. There has consistently been enough Rudy news to make it the entire last segment of the show every single time. So he's not going to stop screwing up, and judges aren't going to stop punishing for it. But I'm interested to see what Judge Lyman does by the end of this week if he complies finally with this handover order of his possessions to the receivership on pain of contempt. And then I'm also interested to see, obviously, what Judge Howell does on this particular contempt order, the one where he's not handing over any discovery for the January 16th Florida condo homestead trial. And I'm also very interested to see what they decide, what the judge decides about the ongoing defamation. So we could see either some pretty stiff fines or perhaps even jail time for one Rudy Giuliani. And I will relish the day. These are the silver linings post-election that I like to revel in. So anyway, thank you everybody for listening. Harry, great second show. High five.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You're I am a comment reader, so I go and I read the comments on the various platforms, and I really appreciate everybody's positive feedback. I'm loving talking with you all, and I can't wait to get to meet a lot of you all. So also, you can remember, sign up to be a patron, and we read your name, and you have opportunity to meet us with events coming up.
Yeah, I get to see you, my friend, in D.C. next week.
I can't wait.
We got a little President Biden and Dr. Jill Biden White House invite, and we'll be having a little gala for our patrons there in downtown D.C. as well. Looking forward to that. One last hoorah before The
All
Orange
hell
Menace
breaks
comes
loose,
in
right?
and burns the place down. Although he's probably just going to set up camp down at Mar-a-Lago and make it the Southern White House.
He's going to telework.
Yeah, he's going to telework.
He's going to telework from Mar-a-Lago, like
from the golf course. Right?
Absolutely.
But it's seriously, thank you all for listening, and we really do appreciate it. I promise you, there's going to be more dirt on Rudy on next week's episode. Harry and I will be in your ears this weekend for the bonus for patrons, and I seriously can't thank you all enough for listening and supporting.
Thank you, y'all.
Yep. So we appreciate it, and come find us on Blue Sky. It's a much better alternative than Twitter.
Peaceful over there.
It's nice, right?
I love a nice blue sky.
Yeah, it is. It's very nice. So I'm same Mueller, she wrote. You're the same, Libra Dunn.
Libra Dunn with a 1 at the end because somebody created a fake profile of Libra Dunn, but so I had to put a 1 at the end.
Dirty mofos.
Libra Dunn 1.
All right. Man, at the end of the show, I'm always like, you hang up first. No, you hang up first.
You hang
up first. I just love everybody so much. All right, everybody. We'll be back in your ears next week. I'm Allison Gill.
Harry Dunn. Later, y'all.
Cleanup on Aisle 45 is written, researched, and produced by Allison Gill, with editing by Molly Hockey. Our art and logo design are by Joelle Reeder and Moxie Design Studios, and our music is composed and performed by Adam Orr. Cleanup on Aisle 45 is a proud member of the MSW Media Network, a collection of creator-owned podcasts dedicated to news, politics, and justice. For more information, visit mswmedia.com. MSW Media.